Hi, it's a lovely spring day, and for the first time in ages I've had the opportunity to sit in the sun and have a cup of tea. We finally finished our barn build, and I know you're probably thinking, oh no, not another video on barns, but if you stick around you might see how we built it, and we've used some quite innovative materials. Hey, and one thing you should know about this building is it may look like a shed, but we call it a barn, so it's the orchard barn, okay? But what's interesting is we've used some really quite innovative materials, which we're going to have a look at, and we've also used some quite interesting recycled techniques and recycled materials. So have a look at what we've done. First thing we did was we chose a roof that's metal, traditional galvanised tin roof, corrugated steel, which is coated in zinc, very reliable, reflects a lot of heat and is really tough, and it just goes really well with the local environment. Then the other thing we did is we chose windows which are light transmitting, but they're not particularly opaque, so you get a beautiful light in there in the evening, but it doesn't let too much light in because this is a refuge from the intense heat we get here. This building faces south, so it's really important to have somewhere shady that you can work in and actually keep out the heat. So not only do we have these glass walling block windows which we've set in, we've also got this other reclaimed material, which are these 1970s really thick, heavy-duty street paving, which nobody wants anymore, but they make a really good floor, and all I do is just lay them on ballast and level them off. And the great thing is that you can sweep them clean, you can walk on them, and they're very, very tough. And they make a very good interior floor or an exterior floor, and it's just got to be good enough for what we have here. You wouldn't lay a patio like that, but they're great for a barn entrance. Let's go and have a look at the other windows that we reclaimed from the cottages around the corner. These are the reclaimed Victorian cottage windows that we had. These are standard windows from the 19th century, and they're metal, very, very strong, and they're glass inset, and then we've just framed them in here. They don't open, but they're just great for having that sort of traditional look. But I'm going to put a piece of aluminium plate there, thin, just 1mm plate over that to act as a windowsill, so that's why those blocks are there. That's the last job I've really got to do. The other thing we did was we put a gutter on, obviously, and we've got a temporary pipe that comes down to a rain tank here. But what I would like to have is a much larger tank, and it's just great to harvest the rainwater. If we do any irrigation, and we do very little, then we've always got a tank that we can use for water, and also pass it on into the other side, into the permaculture orchard. One of the problems when you put a building up in an agricultural area is the foundation. Now, we didn't want to go for a concrete slab base, and the main reason is that because that's a very permanent structure, and we didn't include that in our original planning application anyway. So we have a structure which is a ring of walling blocks which are set out in a trench, and they're levelled. You can't see them now, but the great advantage of them is that they are able to be used as a permanent structure which we can then fasten everything onto. And it makes for a very strong construction method. It's based on the Japanese Minka house system, where you can get ground movement, the blocks can move, but everything sitting on it doesn't move. And then you can put rebar through the wooden joists on the floor, which we then concrete in place into the walling blocks. So you have a very strong structure. And then we can lay our floor within that ring of blocks, completely covering it, again on ballast. So this flooring, this is identical to the paving that you saw outside, but it just sits on ballast and it drains. What's really important in this building is that the building stays dry. There's lots of airflow, there's lots of air gaps. This is not a structure that's trying to be windproof. It does have air vents all around it. And also that brings in things like butterflies, can overwinter in here. We haven't had any birds coming in, but we may do even now. The great thing is to keep the building dry, because what you don't want is condensation building up inside any structure, and long term you'll get moulds and rots, which are no good. So when you build a square building or anything that's going to be cubic, one of your challenges is to make sure that it can really withstand the wind and be completely solid. And the way we've got that solidity is by putting in these cross members, these A-frames that run through the structure, and you'll see all around this structure we've put in these diagonals, and the minute you put a diagonal in, a cross beam in, you fix that right angle in place and make it impossible for the building to go out of shape, which is very, very important. So that's how we've built this structure. We've built an agricultural building. We've created something which is multifunctional, but it can also withstand the sort of storm force winds we get up here during the winter, and we really need to have something that's very robust.